So first of all, congratulations on your impending retirement, but I should also want to say, condolences to the rest of us. I mean, you're such an important presence on the bench, but I think it comes at such a pivotal time, not just in the terms of legal circles, but in terms of the American conversation that we're having right now. And of course, it comes just as President Joe Biden has nominated the first African-American woman to be on the U.S. Supreme Court. You're the first African-American woman on our Court of Claims. Life is really full circle, isn't it?
It is that. It is that. And unfortunately, the United States Supreme Court is going to have a Supreme Court justice before the state of Michigan has ever had a Black woman.
That's absolutely right. We still have not smashed that ceiling in Lansing.
Not yet.
Yeah. So I want to start with you talking to our viewers just a little about your career, how you got started, what got you interested in law, and then we'll talk about the constant kind of barrier breaking that you've had to do.
Well, what got me started in law, I can't exactly tell you, but I know the moment when I decided I could be a judge. Judge Damon Keith was the graduation speaker at Cass Technical High School in 1968. And that made me think not just about lawyers, but about judges. I was privileged to, like yourself, I bleed maize and blue. So I went to the University of Michigan and was going to go to Michigan's law school. But at the time I was both engaged to be married to somebody whom luckily I did not marry. He married someone else and has been a wonderful husband and father. But I wanted to go to either Michigan or Harvard. I was able to get into Harvard, but we needed a year for him to work before he could transfer. So I went and went into a PhD program. And then, as my mother reminded me, I dropped out. I worked for the poverty program for a minute, and then went to Emory Law School. From Emory, I was privileged to take the bar in Georgia, Texas, and Michigan because Michigan is where Mom was, and I knew I was going to come home. Had the opportunity to work for one of the most brilliant lawyers I have ever met in my life, the late Basil Brown, Senator Brown, as the Associate General Counsel for the Michigan Senate. I ran for the Charter Commission in Wayne County, was its vice chair. And then this new thing was created called the 36th District Court. And so I was amongst the very first judges to be elected to that court. It was a conversion from the old common pleas. And I was a district court judge for 32 months. Governor Blanchard was kind enough to appoint me to be a circuit judge. And I was there for about 28 years. So here we are now at year 40 and month 3 of judicial service. And I am going to be retiring at the end of this month. And I'm happy to say, because I was the last Black appellate judge in the state, that as of this month, Noah Hood will join the Court of Appeals. And next month, Judge Christina Robinson Garrett will join the court. So we'll be back to 2, but that'll still put us down by 1 from the number we used to have.
Yeah. So I do want to talk about your presence on the Court of Claims and what that was like, because we're about to see Ketanji Brown Jackson, I think, experience the same thing. You're the first in this austere company and in this austere place, and I imagine there's lots of pressure, but I think there's also, of course, lots of opportunity.
The Court of Claims was curious because I was there for about 6 years. And in the last year, we had all of those election cases and we had all of the cases involving COVID. So it was a court that was a hotbed of issues that were both legal, but very, very, very political. The pace was fairly fast in that year. And so were the threats that would come in. And, it never occurred to me that anybody would call up a judge's chambers and threaten them. But that's where we are now.
Obviously, you've got security and state police, I would imagine, to deal with those threats. it changes the way that I think we all interact with one another, and it changes the dynamic between us.
It does. It does. It, on one hand, it reminds you of how personal legal issues are now.
Mm-hmm.
You thought of them, you tend to think of them as kind of esoteric and etc., but they're real life issues. When I was a trial judge, I knew that who got custody of the kid mattered deeply. I absolutely knew that whether or not you got compensated for discrimination or things like that mattered. On the appeals court and in the court of claims, you're usually dealing with paper. And so the good thing, if there's a good thing about this changed environment, is that it does sharpen your focus to understand that every single case, whether you see the people in it or you're reading the paper and reading their briefs, every single case is personal to somebody and deserves that kind of focus and respect.
So I want to go back to your time on 36th District Court, which is a court that you know, it's got kind of a rough reputation at times, at least, because of the slow pace of things, and I think it's an underfunded court, you know, and that contributes to that. But as you point out, it was a new court when you joined it, and the idea there, as I remember it, was representation, better representation for Detroiters in these matters. Talk about how important it was that we did that and what it was like in those early years. Well,
in 1980, we had a major funding crisis in Wayne County for a number of things, for both the Recorder's Court, which existed at that time, the Circuit Court, and the Common Pleas Court. And Senator Brown and others, including Mayor Coleman Young, and soon to be Justice Archer, got together and with Sam Gardner and some others and came up with a plan to do a couple of things. First, to shift the burden of funding the state court off of the people of the county of Wayne. And secondly, to afford the people of the city of Detroit what every other city had, which was a district court that managed its traffic tickets and misdemeanors and landlord-tenant matters. And they were able to come up with an agreement with then Governor Milliken to do that. And we went from a situation where in common pleas at that point, there were 7 judges. Of those 7 judges, there were 10 judges. Of those 7 judges, 3 were African-American. John Murphy, who will be retiring from the circuit court, the amazing Lucille Watts, who has left us, and Freddie Bird, who we all called cousin. And we went from 3 judges there to when we added another 7 judges when the district court first began. Of those 7 judges, 6 were African-Americans. And so we went from a point where we had maybe 30 Black judges in the state of Michigan to the point where we reached over 100.
And that matters. I mean, there are people who want to say it doesn't, but it does. It matters that people who not just look like you, but have your life experience sit on the bench.
And there are a couple of real easy things for people to understand why it matters. An individual is accused of, let's just say it's a traffic offense, okay? And it's significant, but it's a traffic offense. And the question is, do you get bail or don't you get bail, right? And if I know that the fact that somebody moves every year is not a big deal, I don't consider that person to not have community ties. So it matters. When you have a child custody case or a child termination of parental rights case, and a parent says, you know, I can't manage this on my own. And they go move in with a fictive aunt, because everybody's an auntie. And they move in until they have a multi-generational house. Some people would say that's not a stable home. But if you've lived in multi-generational houses, if you understand that fictive kin are sometimes much nicer than the real ones, you're going to realize that that person has made a wise and safe decision. And that you don't want them living on their own because they're having trouble managing the kids. Yeah. So it matters.
Yeah. What are you going to miss about judging when you leave the bench?
It will not be the color black.
You get to wear more colorful clothes, right?
Yeah. See, that's why I'm wearing I will miss the direct ability to influence decisions that affect important issues in people's lives as a judge. On the other hand, though, I think of it as a Christmas present. The Michigan Supreme Court created finally a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission for the state of Michigan. I get to be one of its first co-chairs. And so maybe I'll get a chance to make some systemic changes.